Today, I want to be going through a little bit of Genesys Cloud. So, as many of you probably don't know, Genesys Cloud is a contact center platform based in the cloud. Originally was software put together by Interactive Intelligence and then acquired by Genesys Telecommunications. What I brought up here is really the first admin interface. I'm not going to go over all this today. Most of the top, we kind of see like the main application stuff at the top, and then also the call control on the left-hand side. And then a lot of these different admin topics. So I'm not going to go through a whole lot of it from the main like layout perspective, but I'm just mostly going to dive into architect. So I'm going to start showing the actual main screen, and we'll go from there. Okay, so this is the full admin interface we got brought up here. So I'll get switched over, and then. A lot of these topics can be like a lot of different admin trainings. Like all these different sections can be a whole thing to go over. I'm not going to do that. I'm just going to stick around here in this architect, which in and of itself is probably the biggest one, even though it looks kind of like the small category over here. It definitely has the most to talk about. So right now I've brought up Genesys Cloud, and I'm kind of logged in with this communication bar over to the left, and then the main menu stuff on the top. Left kind of going horizontally, but then vertically I can see that I've actually got my phone active and all that. When I open up Architect, it doesn't need really any of that stuff. So I'm going to go ahead and click on it, and then boom, it's going to open up as a different tab. I think Genesys did this just because we don't really need to kind of be logged in with the quote unquote like communication bar. So I like it because it is a little bit cleaner. When we're in the architect world, we don't have that kind of main menu banner. We really just have full white space to be able to go ahead and look at our views and kind of operate and design things without having that communication bar off to the left kind of annoying us. So I like this type of layout. So right now I don't have anything here present for my inbound flows. We are in that section. If I wanted to go into other areas, I can. I have a little ellipses. If I mouse over it, I can go into like inbound message, email, chat, call. Common modules are kind of like basically reusable logic. NQ call logic that's separated out for just calls that are sitting in queue. Same with emails, messages, secure call, voicemail, a lot of data. I'm not going to go for all these topics. Those will be kind of separate videos. Today, I'm just going to go over inbound call. So that's the one I'm going to have fun with today. So we're just going to go over it for about 25 minutes. I got to hop on to another call after this. So we'll go with that. Okay, so first off, I'm going to hit add. This is a name for the flow. I can rename it later if I want to. It will kind of create a secondary one. So really not a big deal for now, but let's just say we'll just name this general inbound. And we'll say, hey, this flow takes in the majority of company calls. I can spell. Okay. That helps us as operations comes back later and just kind of sees why we built this flow. Maybe even other, important information such as the business groups, that kind of thing. Going to be in the demo division. If you have other divisions such as like a lower environment like testing or maybe even dev, you might switch that up, or just different business groups depending on how you're administrating your system. So we're just going to keep it in the demo division, defaulting to English. And then it's going to go ahead and open up a flow. So now we're going to be in an object here. And before I even do anything, I'm just going to go ahead and save it. And let's just go back and just see like what this means now in the main architect. And you can see it's now an item, and it's locked currently. It's not chucked in. It's not published. That would happen once I actually do publish, but I can also check in. This is kind of a way to handle like version management. So if I have other developers sort of come in here to maybe mess around with the flow or anything like that, they can't do anything right now because I've got it locked. So maybe I'm still going to like build a few things, and maybe I change up the greeting a little bit. We say like, we're going to change this to 8 or something, something about the wording that's going on. What I can do in here is I can check in version 1. So I'm going to go ahead and hit that. I'm going to go back to my main view here. Now, we still got general bound. I'm no longer under that locked area, so now my name's not sitting on this. and it is showing as a checked in version 1.0, and we have not published it. So this means that whatever I'm building, whatever I'm kind of made, is not live. We can't really tie it to any flows right now, but it's checked in. So that means somebody else can come along now and start working on this as well. And then when they go in to work on that, and we'll open it up again here. It's going to basically kind of be locked because it's checked in. So if I wanted to start changing things again, as I can't right now, I'll have to hit edit. And then boom, what we've got now is a version 2.0. So now what was 1.0, what I had saved earlier and checked in, is still kind of saved out there. If I wanted to go to it, it's there, it's sitting there. But for me, I'm good to go ahead and keep moving along. So we're not going to publish yet. I'm going to go ahead and make a few changes, and then we'll see what the publish looks like in just a little bit. So right off the bat, let me go over a little bit of our kind of area and what we've got showing here. So we've got our kind of full bar off the left here, which is going to be kind of the main driver of where our menus are going to be, our tasks, and then kind of what happens at the start. Right now it says starting menu, but that can change, and I will show how in just a little bit. We won't really get into journey flow size. That basically means like when you're really getting to a pretty large, you probably need to move on to creating a different flow. I have built some flows that are pretty massive. If you're actually getting to a point where you're medium and high, great job. I mean, you're working for a massive organization that has a lot built into a flow. So I think really from a developer perspective, once you get to medium, you're getting to large. For your own sanity, just go ahead and create a new flow. But there is ideally a certain size limit you're going to hit. For my sanity's sake, I hit that much quicker than I would, basically creating this flow to a large amount to where it can't handle it anymore technically. The settings area, it kind of has some defaults for what we want to do with actions. I don't really go in here and change too much in here. There's some different durations that you might change. Menus, I do like to go in here and change this because I don't really want it to default to repeating a menu 3 times because I like to set a lot of default like no selection type things that we're just going to move on from. So I really want to start with my defaults being 0. And really, it's a long time, especially if people are just going to go with the no selection. It's a long time to wait. I like to change it down to like 3 seconds. Extension dialing is just not that popular these days. Not a whole lot of agents really even have extensions anymore. And because we're moving to kind of much more of this, kind of digital interface these days, phones, all that kind of stuff, you don't really just need extensions. So why default to it? So I'm just going to go ahead and click it to false. And then that just kind of invalidates what we've got down here for the extension dialing. So that's some default settings I like to change about menus right off the bat. And again, if you don't want to have this, for other menus, you can change them independently. But this is the base of anytime I create a new menu, what it's kind of going to fall back to. Event handling, you can put in a little bit of a different message here if you actually air out something, but we always want to avoid this. We want to be able to handle anything that goes wrong in the flow within the logic itself. So really bad idea if we actually have to ever use this. So I wouldn't worry about it as much. Leave it as it is because this is kind of what you're going to hear if you make a boo-boo in actually designing it. And we want to fix it so that way this is never, ever heard by a caller. Supported languages. English is in here right now. If we want to go ahead and add Spanish, we can. I'll talk a little bit more about what kind of dependencies come about when you do add in another language. And that comes to when we add in prompts, which we'll get to in a little bit. Maybe not today, but another day. We'll see. Recording and speech recognition. There is some speech recognition. It's very, very low level. When you get here, I know it's like really exciting because like, ooh, speech recognition. It's really just for like hearing, like within a menu, like which option you want. Don't think that this is like out of the box, something that's going to be like your caller's going to start saying things like, I want to go talk to so-and-so and I want my password reset. No, you're going to have to get like other packages to really kind of handle that large amount of speech recognition. And this is going to be, again, just very much like, option 1, option 2 kind of stuff within a menu. So don't get too excited about it. I leave it there, but I really don't depend on using that too much within flows, especially at the kind of out of the box base level. Data. This is going to be where our variables are. So for those of you well versed in programming, you'll know how you're going to have different variables that are accessible within your function or maybe within a class, something that you use. There's a kind of a class system variable, access type system within Architect's structure. I'll get to that a little bit when we start to talk about the different variable types, but you can kind of fall back on a little bit of thinking as it relates to when variables are going to be accessible and not. So prompts, what's really nice is if we're really going to be referencing our prompts here within our flow directly, it's going to list them all out as dependencies here, which can be really nice if you ever need to change a voice talent. Knowing what all prompts are in here and then being able to see that in the main prompt area and being able to change those is very key, and we'll see in a little bit. Dependencies as well will kind of show anything else that just gets dragged in that you might need to know about. If you're ever moving this to another environment, and you just kind of need to know how there is some dependencies that this flow might need to have built in that other environment before you move this call flow over. Dependencies is a great section to change. Okay, reusable menus, reusable tasks. This is where I like to build the majority of the logic. As I mentioned, and we'll get to in a sec, the starting area, I will build some upfront logic there, but I like to be able to see all my menus laid out in these tasks area. Don't worry that it says reusable. If we build a menu here and we don't ever reuse it twice, or it's fine. I just like to build menus there, and I like to build tasks in these area. Doesn't matter whether I'm going to reuse them or not. This is where you're going to put stuff. Believe me, that's kind of how you're going to be able to lay out things. We're not going to be building everything out in kind of this starting area. It's good to just kind of get into a practice of that, because as you get into larger flows, you don't want everything kind of built out in your starting area. Okay, let's talk about the toolbox a little bit before we actually get going here. So we've got a few things, and again, this toolbox is going to be relevant to whatever kind of thing you've clicked on at the moment. So there may not always be options that we have within a menu versus a task within our toolbox. It just depends on what area we're in, but that's where we're going to be able to grab those building blocks that we're going to be pulling into the interface for building out things. So, all right. That's a nice little tour. I kind of already went over some of the buttons up here we talked about when we were looking at some of that check-in stuff and version control. But let's go ahead and get building. We've got just a little bit of time here, so I'm going to go ahead and start with kind of my first actions as a call flow designer. And that is one of the very first things I do is I go down here and I go ahead and create one of these tasks. Now, this task, I'm going to name main task. What is a task? Well, it's really just kind of a field of view of where we're going to have a main pane of building out multiple things that might happen. So maybe we set a variable, maybe we do a couple different things, and we can build a lot of logic within a task. We can actually kind of create our own menus if we wanted to within a main task. I have seen it before where an entire call flow was built in one task. I wouldn't suggest it. It gets ugly after a while. There is a kind of collect data input, which is what you use to mimic creating a menu. Let's just use the standard menu objects. But that is a possibility. So a task is, in my point, kind of the main base of it. I don't like to start with menus. I like to start with tasks because I like to kind of see what I'm doing up front, and we'll see how we make that the starting thing here. So I'm going to name this one main task. The thing that you're going to notice right off the bat is we're already in a red. And it's like, we haven't even done anything. How are we having an error? And it's just because when you create a task, it needs an ending action. A task is always going to need to resolve into something. One of the main, things that we might do is transfer it then to another task or transfer it to a menu. But as long as we just have some sort of ending action, something that's going to kind of complete it, then we can get rid of this. And we can actually go up here to kind of validate and just make sure we saw that we do. And it will, if I mouse over here, will tell me hey, this task doesn't have a terminating action or just kind of an ending point. So I'm going to go ahead and add that in real quick. So let's add in a disconnect. Boom. Okay, now it's happy. This task doesn't really do anything. It's just going to disconnect the call. But hey, we've got an ending action in there. So now our validation check is no longer yelling at us with that error. What I'm going to do is just to kind of make this task seem like it's doing a little bit more than just ending the call. I'm just going to put a play audio step in there. I'm not going to create a prompt for it. I'm just going to do TTS right now. So right off the bat, I can just put in here, thank you for calling. So I'm just going to put that in here. Thank you for calling. Boom. All right. That's all I need. And now I have TTS playing right before a disconnect. So I have really the basics of a task. We can kind of see we have a couple items here. And now we're ready to fly with this. Now, it's just sitting over here. There's nothing that really connects to it. It's really just kind of an orphaned object. But what I like to do, and again, this is kind of like item number 2. Item number 1 was creating this task. Item number 2 is going up here, and in this little ellipses over here, we've kind of got some different ways of like creating different toolbox, all that kind of stuff. But what I'm going to do is actually go down here to this ellipses, and I'm going to say, set this as the starting task. Notice it wasn't up there in the other one. This is going to basically flip it down into its kind of bin of menus that we have down here. And now that task I just created is now the starting task. It is the entry point for this call flow. And now this main menu is just kind of sitting down here, orphaned. And I'm going to create my own menu structure when I need them. So I'm just going to go ahead and delete this for now. Yeah, that's fine. It's got a child object. That's why it gives me a little warning message. Okay, now we have the main task, and that's really it. That's all this call flow is now, is really just an entering into the main task and playing of audio and then disconnecting. The other thing that I like to clean up is we have this little initial greeting up here, and it defaults to this hello, this initial greeting. Really annoying that it just kind of says that out of the box. I'm not a fan. So I'm going to go ahead and just delete that, but you'll notice as soon as I do this, we're now got this like yellow box up here. It's really annoying. I don't like that being in the corner of my eye. If I mouse over here, it says the main sequence originally has no audio set, and I can't get rid of it. It's just kind of there as a field. And we can still like save this, publish it, release it. It's fine. It's just a warning. It's not an error. It's not a red error. So we can still move forward with working. But I don't like it. I don't like having warnings sitting there like that. It's just something that bugs me. I can't stand it. So there's a way to get rid of the warning. And what we can do is go into the initial greeting area. We'll go ahead and remove this text-to-speech field. So we kind of now have a lot of different like configuration options that we could do. But the very quick and easy way to just go ahead and get rid of that warning is we go in here and there's an add blank audio. And then go ahead and go in here and just kind of put this setting all the way down. It's 100 milliseconds. Very hard for a human to even notice that short of a time frame. But for us at least setting a blank audio here at 100 milliseconds, we now then get rid of our warning message. And now we're able to operate in a much more clean, non-eye annoyance type of way when we look at our validation box. So now we've kind of cleaned up, and now, in my opinion, we're at what the base is for us actually building out our flows. So this is where we would really start to build out different things. And as you notice, and when I'm in my toolbox now, I have so many more options because we're in a task. We can really start to build in things. So let's do something with variables up front. So if I go here and I say in my toolbox, and let's say like, let's do one of these update datas. What I can do is go ahead and create a variable in this update area. And when I actually go ahead and say like, and there's a lot of different types, we'll get into those later. Let's just do your typical old string. All right, good old string. Now I'm going to establish a name for this, and then I can assign it some sort of value. Now, let's think of a name here. Let's just say, business group. That's a good one. Business. Okay. Now, the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to hit enter. And we're going to see that actually as I do this, the name is going to change a little bit. It now says task.businessgroup. So what I've done is created a variable that is local to this task only. If I go and create another menu, I go and create another task, this variable cannot be referenced by those other tasks. It can within this area. So anything that we kind of see in this light gray area, which is our task build area, that is where this task can be referenced. But you might ask, well, what if I want to set something here that I can get to it at any time, at any other part in the flow? You can do that as well. So let's say business group for this task is just going to be, I don't know. We'll just say like marketing. Okay, so that's the one we're going to use just within this task. I'm going to go ahead and create another one. We're going to use string again. This time, instead of just entering in a name and hitting enter, I'm going to very specifically type in flow dot, and then let's name this, I don't know. We'll make it something fun like group DNIS. So basically what the phone call is. This is kind of already a parameter around there, but we'll just have fun with this. Okay, so now when I hit enter on this, where I've already typed in the flow.groupDNS, you'll see that it will keep as being that variable type. And that is different. Now, this one, and I'll just make it like, I'll make it an expression here, and we'll make it like one of the variables that's available. Nope. Call dot, and we'll talk about these in a sec. Let's do, I don't know, yeah, code address. Okay. So now we've set these two variables all in the same area, but one of them can be used like here in this play audio step, or maybe an evaluation of marketing within the flow, and then the flow can be used elsewhere. So as an example, let's go ahead and create another task. Let me go ahead and save. And I'll create a task, and we'll say secondary task. All right, we'll do another little update data in here. I'll do my little disconnect because, you know, we know how annoying those warnings are. Okay, so update data. All right. So if I want to update something and I start to type in group, right, I'm only seeing the flow. I'm not seeing the other task item, even though we did have it named like, you know, business group. I'm just showing as that flow. So we can now in this task do that. And I could do a kind of transfer over into this one. So because right now it's kind of orphaned, but we could do that. And so we could say, you know, this is now going to be the original one for whatever reason. So call dot address arisen. I'm just kind of using system level attributes for right now for setting those. So, okay. And then I'll hit save. I'll go over and I'll look at my data, and boom, we start to see this show up. So I called a couple of these system level ones, so it's just kind of telling me like, hey, I'm using these. I didn't create these. They exist. They're showing as a dependency now within data. And then here are the two I created. So it's letting me know, hey, this one is a task item. It's only available in the main task, and the other one, the group DNS, is available basically everywhere. It's already used in two places, which basically means those two different tasks that I have. So that's a little bit then about the basics of the variables and how you might then use them within a flow. So yeah, I can go ahead and I'll go back to the main task. We'll show these areas here. Thank you for calling, disconnect. And then I'm just going to kind of minimize things so I can just look at it very nicely as my main task. And so as I build this out, I get a little bit more real estate. And I'm all done. So I'm going to go ahead and publish. And I don't even need to check in or anything like that. It's just publishing. It's going to go ahead and do that. So it's going to check it in, unlock it, make it available. So now we are locked. So I can't change any of these now. Those are all set in stone. And what I'm going to do now is go over here to Architect. And we see it as no longer being locked. It's checked in and published. So now we're ready to go. And we would go ahead and put this in our routing table, route a number for it to route in, and we'd be all set. So that is the basics for getting rolling with an inbound flow and making a few little adjustments as you go through and want to get more into detail. So we'll do more in the future for that. Until later.